The January 6th Select Committee kicks off the first of 6 public hearings a little over 24 hours from now, revealing the results of its nearly year-long investigation. Let's bring in CNN special correspondent Jamie Gagel and CNN's chief legal analyst Jeffrey Toobin. Jamie, what are you learning about tomorrow's primetime hearing tomorrow night? And specifically, is the American public going to be hearing from some of the people closest to the then President Trump?
I think tomorrow we're going to see a prosecutor, in effect, laying out a case, a preview of what's to come. And we've been told, we've been reporting for quite some time, that we're going to see new video, new testimony. They interviewed 1,000 different witnesses. And among those witnesses, Ivanka Trump, who was, let's remember, a first-hand witness. She was at the White House on January 6th. I think there will be other family members who've also gone in to testify. Maybe we will see Attorney General, then Attorney General Bill Barr, who played a key role because the committee wants to make the point that on December 1st, Bill Barr told Donald Trump there was no significant election fraud, and yet he kept going down this path.
Going and going.
Right.
So much of the plotting for this coup attempt, Jeffrey, as you know, and as our viewers know, it happened behind the scenes. So how do they bring that forward during the course of this public hearing?
You know, the famous Watergate question was, what did the president know and when did he know it? I think it's a little different. I think the question here is, what did Donald Trump do? Because, you know, what we don't know is how much, if at all, was President Trump involved in the planning or knowing about the storming of the Capitol? What role did he play in the attempt to intimidate the Vice President Pence? What role did he play in the attempt to put forth fake electors? All of that, as you say, took place behind the scenes. The people we need to hear from are Ivanka Trump, who was there, Mark Meadows, who was there, and also, I think very importantly, yesterday there was a ruling from a federal judge that said some of John Eastman's emails are going to come out. Eastman was the brains of the operation. He was the guy, the law professor, who was giving the legal advice that led to the effort to overturn the election. What do those emails show? That will start to show what the president did.
Jamie, you've been doing a lot of reporting on what the committee is up to. Who is their target audience for these hearings?
So I think obviously the American public, right? It's been a year and a half. They have to remind people. Some people have wanted to move on. Some Trump supporters still believe that it was tourists there. So I think the committee really wants to reach that audience. But I would say they have one other audience, and that is an audience of one, and that's Attorney General Merrick Garland. At the end of the day, the committee is presenting what they have learned for history, for the record. They are not going to indict anyone. A criminal referral, as Jeffrey would say, really doesn't mean anything. So the question is their evidence, their testimony, going to push Merrick Garland and the Department of Justice to take further action? According to my sources on the committee, they are hoping it will.
Yeah, I think that's their goal right now. How tall an order is it, Jeffrey, for the committee to actually change minds during the course of these hearings?
Well, one of the things we've learned about American politics in the Trump and post-Trump era is that there are not a lot of minds out there to be changed. I mean, this is a very locked-in audience, and there are a handful of probably suburban viewers who, don't follow politics very carefully, but, and haven't followed this investigation certainly the way we have. That's probably the audience. The Fox News audience, Fox will not be broadcasting the hearings. They're not the target audience because they're not changed. Their minds are not changed. But the handful of people who are open to new evidence, that's the audience. But I don't know. Maybe Jamie knows. I don't know how big that audience is of open-minded people.